figure out what I've already mentioned and what I need to go over again. It does seem like there is a little warning showing up on YouTube to do with the audio, so it could have been from that side. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Samsung AF Slim, a little known camera from Samsung with a 35mm prime lens, f3.5 aperture. It's got this little screen up the top there, and it has a macro focusing feature, which means it can focus pretty close. Now, not many people know that Samsung made cameras. They were a pretty key player in the camera industry, especially in the 90s, even up till the digital era. And I think they dropped out of making cameras not too long ago. You know, I was still working at a camera store at the time, and they had some pretty popular little digital point and shoots, but then they just decided to focus on other things. So the AF Slim was released around the early 90s. A lot of people think it's a repurposed version of the Konica Big Mini, which I don't believe it is. I've done some research, and from what I can see, it might share some design cues from the Konica. It might even perhaps use some similar parts, but Konica was a Japanese company. Samsung obviously being based in South Korea, I don't think they would have just rebadged a Konica. And also there are some key differences in the position of the buttons and the screen and the features, the way the camera actually operates. And from what I've read, even the performance is different between the AF Slim and the Big Mini. So in this stream, I want to talk a little bit about this camera, share some samples, and go over some of those misconceptions about this and alternate versions or similar cameras, including some from Samsung, such as the AF Slim R version, the AF Slim Mini, or I think it's just called AF Mini. There's a lot of versions, and there's even rebadged versions of this camera from Rollei and Voigtlander. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all that, but straight off the bat, this camera is a great performer. I really enjoy what I get out of this camera, especially out of the lens. It has a uniquely sharp lens with a smooth rendering. It's great that it can focus close, and that smoothness can even be in the out of focus areas, which you can achieve because it has that close focus feature. And the only downside of it is the fact that it's quite noisy. So I'll turn it on just so you can hear it. Yeah, it's not a pleasant sound when it turns on and turns off, and including when you fire the camera. So I'll just turn the flash off and fire it here just so you can hear it. Yeah, it's rough. It's just a really obnoxious, grindy electronic sound, and that's the main thing I don't like about the camera. But otherwise, I love the performance I get out of it. It's my favorite prime lens point and shoot ever since buying it. I picked up mine a few years ago, and I've shot a few rolls through it at least now. And I was lucky enough to get mine from an op shop for $5. I know this annoys a lot of people when I tell them I find cameras like this for $5. But that's what I used to do before all these lockdowns, and when it was a bit easier to find them. I used to just regularly check all my local thrift stores, op shops, whatever you want to call them. And I would find cameras like this, especially point and shoot cameras, for really low prices. And I would just try and pick out the ones that had prime lenses. At the time, I had no idea what it was. I just bought it because it was $5. And since then, prices have gone up. And that's why I was hesitant to make this video for a while, but I've had the camera for a bit. I thought I'd share some information, and by now the prices have already been inflated, so there's not much worse I can do by making this video, I think. But yeah, what I want to do is share some samples, and I'll do that in Lightroom. I'll just jump in now. So thanks everyone in the comments. That was really annoying with that late start. It really gets to me with these live streams when you try so hard to set everything up and then it just backfires on you. And now I'm going to have to see if I can trim that first 4 minutes where I was just talking to myself essentially, because it's not going to bode well for the video once the stream ends. Or I could just delete the entire video and make it live only. So we'll see how we go with that. So interesting comment there about have a Samsung film in my fridge, but didn't know they made film camera too. Yeah, so Samsung's film was just repurposed Japanese film from Fuji most likely, including Konica maybe, but yeah, I don't think they made their own film. But let's jump into Lightroom and just show you some of the images I've made on this camera. And I have quite a lot here, so I'm not going to show you all of them. What I've done is I've just got some flagged ones that I'll narrow it down to so we can have a look at those and show you some of the ones I quite liked from the camera. And first one here is just what you would tend to do with a point and shoot camera, happy snaps using the flash, and you can already see that it has that sharp performance This is on RPX 100 film. Is it RPX? Yeah, RPX 100. And same film here, just from a few shots I took while up in Cairns assisting on a photo shoot, and just had it in my pocket. It's a very pocketable camera, but you can see the performance is quite nice. It's really sharp, and especially with a low ISO film like this. Got another low ISO film being Provia 100, which I shot overseas in Nepal and Japan and Bangladesh and so on. But this was on Provia slide film, which is notoriously hard to scan, at least for me. This was done on the Epson V800 when I still had that. You can hear the camera going off there. And I just couldn't get good scans of slide film, including even on my DSLR. I haven't perfected it. And this was at low res, and you can see it just doesn't do it justice. But you can kind of see at least some of the performance of the camera. I think something was off about these scans. They're quite soft. This was one of my favorite shots in Nepal taken on this camera. And you can see that unique slide film look. So the camera meet as well, including on slide film, which is a plus. All these shots here being from Provia. And this one, really beautiful rendering from the lens. You can see it has a bit of vignetting, and with slide, you know, those punchy colors. But the lens performs well. And again, these scans are quite low res. That's 100%. So you can see it, you know, doesn't do it justice there. But this one's from Japan. And let's move on to some shots from a different film. Now, this is one of the great things about having a prime lens with a fast-ish aperture. f3.5 is pretty good for low light shooting if you have steady hands. And these are a few low light shots at nighttime. This one here is indoors. Another indoor shot in a very gloomy day. This one's on T-Max P3200, which is quite grainy. I've got some photos from inside the car here, also T-Max. I've got Tri-X 400. This was pushed to 800, which I did by hacking the DX code, I think, because I don't think this camera has ISO control. This is sort of a street style shot taken on this camera. You can see the benefit of that close focus here. And another shot on Tri-X. But yeah, overall, this camera performs great. I do love the fact that it can focus close. It can focus about 1 foot away, as opposed to the usual maybe 2 or 3 feet of most point and shoot cameras. And that's one of the advantages of a camera like this one, especially when you don't have to enable the macro mode. You just use the same half press autofocus and then recompose if you like I would have done with that shot. But yeah, for a point and shoot camera, it's definitely underappreciated. Now, as I said before, unfortunately the prices have gone up. It's rare to find any point and shoot camera, even for me these days, for $5 or $10 at an op shop. And then if you look online, these go for about $200, and there's very few of them online. Some shots from Kodak Portra 160 here. From Wilson's Prom in Victoria. And as I mentioned before, it has some great features, including the bulb mode, which I used here. I just rested the camera on, I think it was just some kind of like ledge or something. I can't remember what I used. And I just held down the shutter button for a few seconds, maybe just a second roughly, judging by the light trails of the car passing. And yeah, the metering, you know, the exposure came out pretty good, even though I guessed it. The lens renders nicely. It would have used a pretty shallow depth of field here. Looks like maybe it was wide open. But yeah, it seems to favor the wide open apertures. And another night shot here, same thing, just resting on a ledge, which is why it's a little bit wonky. But yeah, it's a versatile little camera. And just going back to some color shots here on Portra. These are really clean because Portra is a nice film, and you can see in shots like this one, the sharpness you can get out of this camera. This is actually one of the op shops I used to regularly check for cameras, and I used to find cheap bargains here, but then they caught on to everything and raised the prices. But yeah, I'm just going to scroll through a few more shots. You can see really nice rendering here. There's a little bit of a flare, but it kind of looks nice. Indoor, once again, without the flash, still works pretty well. And I've got a few more black and white shots. Around the time the pandemic started, and you can see I've got like some of these sort of isolation sort of themed shots with empty streets and whatnot, and that fog that we had last year in winter of 2020. And look at us now, a year later, and we're still in lockdown. But yeah, look at that performance indoor. close focus, good sharpness, nice smooth rendering, a little bit of a vignetting, but not too much. It just adds character. It's not obnoxious. The corners are not the sharpest, but they're decent for a point and shoot camera. And this is the last roll I have to show you guys. Flagged shots. This was Color Plus 200, but it was self-developed, and I think I accidentally overdeveloped a little bit on this particular roll. It was sort of a test roll that I shared between this camera and another one, and the scans are a little bit weird. But again, you can see the performance of the camera. It's great. Good sharpness, good overall look. So yeah, guys, that's my roundup of sample images I wanted to show you from this camera. Another thing I wanted to share was some information on the camera in case anyone is looking to read more about it. One of my favorite articles and favorite websites in general to read about camera information is 35mmc. So I'm going to see if I can bring up that browser for you here to have a look at. And all right, that may not work, but I've put a link in the description of the video to the 35mmc review by Hamish Gill. When I first found my copy of the camera, I jumped on his website, read his review, and found that I shared a lot of the same thoughts about the camera, and he has some great sample shots that he's taken with his one. So I'm going to see if I can bring that up. It's just not cooperating for whatever reason. All right, here we go. Maybe that'll work. All right, there we go. So that's the article by Hamish Gill. And, you know, you can see the same kind of wear and tear on that paint job. At least his one's not as bad as mine, but he had the crack in the viewfinder there. And you can see some of his sample shots as I scroll down. He kind of really tested that close focus feature and got some beautiful shots out of it. And I think I've seen another few reviews that share the same sentiment overall with this camera. So yeah, it's a great option. The only thing is it's pretty hard to find a copy. And if you look on eBay, for example, you know, you'll search for Samsung AF Slim, but you'll find a lot of the zoom versions of it. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll find the AF Slim R. Now, just to clarify some of the differences between that camera, the AF Slim R, I'll bring up this website here to show you the alternate version. The AF Slim R, as far as I can find out through my research, was a cheapened version of this camera. So they added this plastic lens cover as opposed to just having the actual front element being glass protected by the plastic shield on this camera. So, you know, when I turn it on, you can see that this one has that glass lens without any plastic in front of it. So if I can get this camera to autofocus, you'll see that, but it's not cooperating. Here we go. So that's actually something that makes a big difference, not having that plastic in front of it, because those plastic shields kind of get foggy over the years and they can deteriorate your image quality. And the AF Slim R also doesn't have that macro focus feature. According to all my research, you cannot disable the flash on it, which is a big downside for me. You can disable the flash with this one. It had poorer quality buttons. The half press wasn't as responsive. They changed some other things about it as well. So the maximum shutter speed was lower. It doesn't have the backlight function. This one has a great backlight compensation, which will actually just probably give +1 exposure compensation if you have a backlit scene. And the lens might even be different. It looks the same, but I've read somewhere that it has a different, you know, element design to the lens. I would think it's probably just that front cover. But yeah, it's deceiving because you would think that this AF Slim R is a good alternate version to the AF Slim, but from what I can see, it's not as good. So I wouldn't go paying very much for the AF Slim R. It does have red eye reduction, but who really cares too much about that? That's the main feature they sold it with, but it's a pretty toned down version of the original, and it loses out on some of those features. So, you know, I found this website with a rundown of some of the original information on the AF Slim R version, which you can see a lot of specs here. So I use that to confirm that it is not as good of a camera, unfortunately. So don't be deceived and go buying the AF Slim R hoping for the performance you get out of this one. I'm sure it's probably decent. I just can't confirm that it's as good. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're looking for cameras out there. Now, another thing, as I said in the beginning, I'm not sure this is when the audio was working or not, but a lot of people think it's the same as the Konica Big Mini. It looks very similar, but apparently it's not. They may have shared the lens design or something from the Konica company, but this was Samsung's own design. Now, it was rebranded by Voigtlander as the Vito C-AF, and also by Rollei as the Prego AF. Weird names, I know, but like I've got some text I can bring up on the screen here. So AF Slim is what I have. The Vito C-AF is Voigtlander's version, exact replica. Rollei Prego AF, again, exact replica as far as I can see. So if you're looking for this camera, also search under those names. There is also their Samsung AF Mini, which is quite rare. I think they came in white, but it's an even, I don't know if it's actually smaller. It looks smaller, but it's just called AF Mini, and I saw past listings where it was in a white finish. So look out for that as well. And other good alternatives I've written here on the screen are the Konica A4, which some people label as a big mini. It was an earlier version or an alternate version. So if you search for Konica A4 and the seller hasn't added the big mini moniker to the title, you'll tend to find it cheaper. That seems like a good camera too. I'm not sure if it performs as well as the Samsung AF Slim, but that's a good camera. Something about this camera is quite special. I have a Contax TVS, and this definitely outperforms it, maybe due to that prime lens. But there are some point and shoot cameras that seem to have what I would call like a magic lens. And I've had a Nikon L35 AF in the past. That's another great camera that I feel like had a great, what I would call a magic lens. This is one of them. And the Olympus cameras with the f3.5 aperture, like the AF1, the AF1 Super, the AF10, and probably some other variants. So, you know, look out for all those sort of cameras. Obviously, you see things like the Mu, which sell for hundreds of dollars, and they're not really worth it, in my opinion. And it's getting harder to find a decent point and shoot camera for $200 or under. So I hope some of that information with these alternatives is helpful to you if you're looking for something. And definitely be patient. There's not many of these out there, so you might need to put on a search alert on eBay or Craigslist or Gumtree or whatever you use. Keep your eye out at garage stores and op shops. You might get as lucky as I did. And I've taken this camera traveling. As you saw, I've got some great shots out of it. So hopefully someone out there can manage to find one and share some of your findings with me if you end up getting one. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. If anyone has any questions about this camera or about some of these alternate versions, feel free to ask. I'll see if I know the answers. I might not. I try to do my research beforehand. But I'm just catching up on some of these chats here. Let's see, got Michael, always wondered about these Samsungs. Yeah, they're not very well known. Hey, Daniel, how you going, man? Love that Zinstax, by the way. It looks great. Point shoot looks awesome. Yeah, it's a little gem. And it's probably the only, if I sell off the rest of my prime lens point and shoot cameras, I'll keep this one. So I'll have one good zoom point and shoot, which is my Contax TVS. And I have about 3 or 4 prime lens ones. I need to get rid of a few. But this will be the one that I keep because the performance is the most enjoyable. The only annoying thing is that noise. It's really hard to shoot discreetly. So yeah, that's the one thing you need to keep in mind. Looks like a Nikon AF600. Yeah, there's actually a few Nikon variants have a similar kind of like lens design. Ricoh R1. Yeah, guys, feel free to share in the comments or in the live chat any other alternates you know of this kind of form factor camera. Don't always go for the f2.8 point shoots. There are some really good f3.5 point shoot cameras out there and they perform really well. Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, thanks, mate. Noise isn't too bad. Yeah, I suppose so. And it kind of depends how far the lens has to come out to focus. If it's focusing close, obviously the lens is going to protrude more. So that's the sound when turning it on. And if I'm focusing at the screen here, I've got like the light actually. Should use a fast shutter speed. Let's see. So that's with it not focusing too far, but maybe I'll see if I can put my hand somewhere, get it to focus there. That's with the lens extending further. So it has that loud electronic sound. So you have to keep that in mind. I have a Ricoh R1, it's pretty good. Yeah, there's some great point and shoots out there. Don't go for all the hyped up ones. Look for cameras like this and some other alternatives. Hey, got Psychic Monkey. Going for a Ricoh GR1V. Expensive. rather than 35 Ti, but I don't mind the chunky build of 35 Ti. Yeah, dude, like 35 Ti, it's a whole different league. That's what I would call the premium point and shoot. You've got your Contax T2s and things like that. But yeah, some of these plastic point and shoot cameras can be really good. This one's not too fragile either. I've heard that the Konica Big Mini can be easy to break. I've dropped this, I think, and it's like faded, and I bought it with a fair bit of wear and tear. From what I read online, it does take a beating. It's a pretty durable little designed and build. So yeah, that's one thing I like about it. The way the lens kind of closes flush, and it has that protector on it. But when it opens, you have the glass front element, which is really good. So I think if you ever spot one of these, don't sleep on it. And Ray, yeah, okay, so you heard the sound of it? Yeah, it's pretty damn loud. All right, guys, I think I want to end the stream there. Sorry for those hiccups in the beginning with the audio. I have no idea why that happened, but that's the nature of live streams once again, and for the delay on the start time of the stream. Again, I don't know if the audio is working, but I mentioned that I had someone coming to fix a water leak, and they showed up late, so I had to push the time of the stream back. And Benny would love a smaller point and shoot. Pretty happy with my Nikon L35 AF2. Yeah, excellent camera. Nikon L35 AF. I had one, but I sold it. So I can't really do a video on it, but I have some sample images, and they're some of my best point and shoot images from that camera. All right, guys, thanks for joining today. Thanks for these last comments. Pentax PC5000. Yeah, I actually think I have one of those as well. I picked it up in an op shop for $10 too, but I haven't used it yet. Yeah. She got it for $8. Wow, beat me by $2. Yeah, that one looks like a great camera. I'm still yet to run a roll through it. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending where you are. Thanks for joining on this live stream and for all the support on the video and on the zine and everything like that. Feel free to join the Discord server, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.